Hey, what's up guys? It's Justin Patty, and today I'm going to show you just how easy it is to swap out your stock bearings with a set of Boca bearings. Today's demonstration is going to be with a Curado 300 EJ. I'm typically going to use this reel for throwing swim baits and A-rigs, but I'm also going to use it for throwing some surface irons. So it's important to get that bait as far away from the boat as possible, and Boca is going to help you achieve that. First off, we're going to go ahead and open up the side drag plate here. You can see spool shaft's going to come right out. You want to make sure you keep this spool shaft somewhere that's not going to get knocked off the table and get bent, because if you bend the edges of this, you're going to just create a bunch of restriction in your, you know, basically just binding up on your collars here. So do not bend this spool shaft. And then we got a bearing in here. Easiest way I found to get these bearings out usually, and you got this little C-clip. You got to watch out because they are spring loaded and they pop out and fly across the room, and you end up having to order another one. So I get a little tiny flathead screwdriver, go ahead and get it inside there. If you can just pop out one side like that, and then I usually use a pair of tweezers, get it out, set it aside. If you have some kind of little magnetic screwdriver, it's easy to pull the bearing right out. If you're going to reuse these bearings and you want to clean them, I usually use a solvent. You got the Boca bearing soak. You can stick those in there, or just some rubbing alcohol, and go ahead and clean those out. So there's the one side. I usually like to take a little Q-tip with some rubbing alcohol, kind of clean out all this grease that's inside of here. There's a ton of oil and grease inside these reels that create friction, and you only really have a couple things that affect your casting distance, and it's all this these races here. This is where the spool shaft kind of spins on. You want to make sure you get all that cleaned up, and the other side you could kind of see there's a bunch of oil in there from stock factory, so I just kind of clean that up. You can get a paper towel and kind of just get some alcohol in there, clean all that out of there. What a lot of people don't know, and they think it's smart to do, is they'll put a bunch of grease in here. You know, they think they're lubing their reels up, and you really are just creating more friction on your spool. So there's the one bearing on that side. Here's the other bearing, and the little cast control knob. You got to kind of line it up between your drag there. Take this little knob off. And on the Curado 300s, you have this extra little collar with this little C-clip there. Most of the reels will have that spring. You just kind of twist and pop those springs out of there. So same thing on this side. Again, I always put my finger there on one side so that that thing doesn't spring across your floor. One side out. Set that aside. These little magnetic screwdrivers. Pop the bearing right out of there. I'm going to go ahead and clean this side as well. The grease out of there. Okay, so you got your reel done there. Here's your orange peels. These come from Boca dry. I don't put any oil in mine. You can put a drop of oil in it. The more you oil them, the more friction you're going to cause, and you know, obviously the less distance you're going to get out of your cast. But they're ceramic bearings, so they don't need oil. And I'm going to go ahead and pop them in there dry like that. See clip back in there. And you will hear a difference with these bearings. If you noticed any pro on television when you watch them, usually when they make a cast, you know, their reels are kind of loud, and that's the only disadvantage of super tuning your reel is the sound, but you know, there's a reason. It's kind of like putting an exhaust on your truck. You're going to get the most performance out of these bearings. So that side's done. Put this side in. You see clip on there. That's it. That's a basic bearing exchange. And I've already cleaned off the races on the where the spool lies there. There's a little bit of oil and grease where the spool shaft gets in right here. I kind of just clean that out. If you take a Q-tip, kind of clean out the middle of that little pinion gear in there. I just kind of take the stuff off the end of a Q-tip and then get it in the middle there. So you don't want any oil or grease or anything on this spool shaft here. So we're gonna go ahead and clean that off. Some alcohol. Kind of clean around the spool. And on this side. Your two points of contact in your reels that are going to come in contact with the bearings, this side of the spool shaft and this side of the spool shaft, are pretty much the only two points of contact with a little bit of resistance on your spool up against the collars here, but that's about it. I get this can spray duster cleaner here, aerosol can, and you can kind of just spray off a little bit of the excess alcohol on there. And that's pretty much it. Go ahead and reinstall your spool. And there you have a super tuned reel. You got your ceramic bearings in there. Like I said, you're getting rid of a little bit of grease and oil that might have restricted your cast before. And these ceramic bearings aren't loaded with oils or greases, so you're going to get the most out of your cast. You guys go ahead and log on to bocabearings.com and order your bearings. It's really simple. You can just type in your information on what kind of reel you have, and it'll walk you through the steps. You know, one of the benefits of putting Boca bearings in your reels is you can buy a mid-grade level reel in that, you know, 100 to 200 range, and for $20 to $30 you can upgrade it with Boca bearings, and it's going to perform like the $300 to $400 reels. So it is a good investment for yourself, especially when, you know, the cost efficient is so expensive. So the mid-grade reels are really well out of the box, but now you just made it even better.